and talk about one of the worst things in history, which is generally the history of Native Americans and how our country has dealt with Native Americans, really by going through 3 specific tribes: the Powhatan, the Lakota people, and the Navajo. This weekend, I luckily was able to get to Washington, D.C. I was planning on going to the American Indian Museum because I'm really excited about that. But one of my friends had scheduled some tour at the National Gallery for 3 o'clock, and we got there at 12:30. So the time just didn't work out very well, and I wasn't able to get to that group. I did get to the National Gallery, and what I found there was probably just as interesting. I'm going to pass around these paintings. They're all by the same artist called Albert Bernstadt, and he painted landscapes of the American West. One of the paintings on there is actually in the National Gallery that I was able to see in person. It's massive. It's maybe it's probably about the length of these 2 boards together. Probably taller too. It's huge. And it's really cool. And he painted those. He traveled to the West. He went to Colorado, a little bit of Utah, painted a lot of the Rocky Mountains, and he was really fascinated by the Native American culture. And he painted them in this sort of high fantasy kind of way. Not necessarily how they actually lived, but the version that he wanted to portray to the American people back on the East Coast. Unfortunately, though, his paintings were kind of reproduced in these etchings and wood carvings and just any way they possibly could at the time. And it was kind of used to progress the idea of manifest destiny, which if you don't know what manifest destiny is, that pretty much means that people believe that God appointed Americans, or just white people in general, to take over the North American continent from coast to coast. And at that point in time, there were thousands of Native American tribes living at that time. They had their own set of ideals that were very different than America's. So I'm going to go through, the first tribe I'm going to talk about is the Powhatan. This one's very interesting because it's literally they live 3 hours away from here, near the Virginia Beach, Jamestown area. The main event that really defines their culture and the way their culture was sort of systematically destroyed by early settlers was the massacre of the settlers in 1622. There was a huge uprising among the Native American tribes that was kind of fueled on both sides. Native American tribes kind of putting themselves up against each other, and all of them collectively going against the settlers in Jamestown because there were a lot of disagreements going on there. I'm going to pass around this other picture of that event happening. This is a depiction of this guy drew from first-hand accounts, even though the guy who drew that wasn't there. One interesting thing about that is if you look at that, the Jamestown didn't look that nice. It's actually really terrible. At that point in time, they were starving to death. This is another thing that we don't really learn in history. Jamestown was kind of a failure. And actually that massacre pretty much destroyed the Virginia Company. So the uprising kind of arose just by differences between the cultures. At that point in time, they were there for very big profit motive. We kind of learned that America was founded as a Christian nation. It was kind of founded for profit. Jamestown was kind of there to make money, and the Native Americans, they didn't really believe in land ownership. They had a very communal society. Everyone kind of owned everything. Everything was very efficient. They had pretty good gender equality, things that people from Europe were very weirded out by. So after the massacre happened, it was a small victory, if you could say that, for the Native Americans at the time, but it kind of started this whole destruction of the Powhatan culture, which is pretty much dead today. They sent their kids to Indian schools. If you know the College of William and Mary, it's in Williamsburg. That was actually started as an Indian school that Indian parents would send their children to learn ways that were more Western. And over the generations, eventually, the language is dead. Very few people are making Powhatan art, and that was kind of all in the hands of the settlers of Jamestown. So if we move further west, about half a century later, we go to the Lakota people, or the Dakota people. The Sioux are also in there as well. Their struggle is a lot more contemporary. They started out dealing with settlers when there were rumors of gold being found in the Black Hills, which is in the Midwest area. And once there were rumors of gold, everyone wanted to get it. So there were so many settlers coming in. There was so many conflicts between settlers and Native Americans who didn't want them on their land. It also didn't help that the Black Hills were kind of sacred to the Lakota people who were living there. And what happened was, at the, you guys probably know the Battle of Little Bighorn. It was General Custer's last stand. That was actually sort of caused by Native Americans literally just camping out near the fort, and they just would not move. It's interesting because there's so many events of specifically the Dakota people using that strategy even up until today. In 1973, about 200 protesters literally just camped out in Wounded Knee to protest the way the government was treating them in their reservation. They were not getting the funding they needed. They had very bad health care issues. And it unfortunately ended in 2 Sioux and Dakota men being killed after 71 days of just camping out on this reservation. So that was not as big of a success as the Battle of Little Bighorn was. And even up until today, you guys have probably heard about Standing Rock. The Dakota Access Pipeline is this big pipeline that the government, or this company, I forget the name of it actually, is planning on building very close to this river that borders the Standing Rock Reservation. And so Native Americans and other environmentalist groups, they do not want this pipeline to be built because it's so close to this river that it's pretty much like their lifeline. Everything they get, like all their, everything is pretty much gotten from this river. And this is happening today. So the strategy of just camping out and hoping for the best is, still going on today with the Native American people. The last one I want to talk about is if we move even further west to the Navajo. They took up the area around like Arizona, like the Four Corners states, like Arizona, Utah, Colorado and Nevada, I think. Is that the one above Arizona? Whatever. Yeah. So their whole trouble started with the Dawes Act of 1887, which pretty much went completely against their whole philosophy of life. They, like I said, very few of the Native American tribes actually believed in land ownership. So when the government put this act in place that literally divided up tribal lands in allotments and told the Native American families, if you move onto this land and it's yours, for after a certain amount of years, you'll become a citizen. But they didn't want that, they didn't ask for it, that was a terrible idea because then they would get the worst land. They had sort of community thing going on, and it just caused a lot of conflict among Native people themselves. This also didn't help with the events called the Long Walk, where 10,000 Navajo and Apache people were forced to relocate from Arizona to New Mexico, which is about 450 miles. And they were literally forced by the soldiers to walk this distance. About a third of them died on the way there. That's about 2,300 people. Just with disease, hunger, exposure. This is all under the supervision of the US Army. They knew at the time that the reservation that they were sending these Native Americans to, the land could only support maybe 35,000 people, and at that time there were about 61,000 people living there. This is information they knew, and they didn't really care, pretty much. Today, the main problem that Navajo have to deal with is just violence in their own community. There's a lot of crime, a lot of alcoholism in these communities. There's a big event in 1974 where white teenage boys came from the town outside of this reservation and killed 3 homeless Navajo men. And they were exonerated, they weren't convicted at all. There's really no punishment for that. So, we have the conversation about people, unarmed people being, killed by the police. Well, Native Americans have been dealing with this for literally about 300 years. Yeah, so now that I've lightened up the mood, I'm gonna read this quote. This is by Chief Joseph. He was in the Oregon Territory, which wasn't necessarily in Oregon itself, like the state that we know it now. It was a bit south and to the west, so more I guess it would be Idaho, northern Nevada, somewhere around there. He said, "It's cold, we have no blankets, the little children are freezing to death. My people, some of them have run away to the hills, they have no blankets, no food, no one knows where they are, perhaps freezing to death. I want to have time to look at my children and see how many of them I can find, maybe I shall find them among the dead. Hear me, my chiefs, I am tired, my heart is sick and sad, from where the sun stands now, I will fight no more forever." So that was just kind of him just giving up. Happy now? Okay. That's it, I'm good.